The F5 podcast, please like, subscribe, and comment. Today we're going to be talking about everything related to physics, civilizations. I think it's going to be an interesting conversation. Stay tuned because
selling your virginity.
And selling your virginity.
Yeah, that'll
Stay
be
tuned
fun.
because we're going to have an awesome time.
Yeah, you're right.
Did you guys watch the last episode where we're talking about selling farts? Did you guys watch that?
No.
Clips are coming up.
The
It
clips
was
are
it
coming
was
up.
hilarious. Dude.
But I think
started
on there.
The one I did watch one that was really funny though.
So
It's not popping up. It'll be coming up soon.
we were
Everything's
like,
scheduled.
she mentioned sugar babies, right? You know, selling,
Sugar
attention,
daddy.
whatever the case
Candy.
may be.
Yeah,
and then
this is weird.
somehow like Andrea brought up selling farts. Like you can make a lot of money
No,
selling
I
farts.
said I remember someone
Yeah.
made a lot of money selling their
farts.
farts.
And
Yes.
then you confirmed, like, I saw that.
No. So she's like, yeah, you can make a lot of money selling farts, and I was like, yeah, we agree. And then we actually thought up scenarios, and I was like, hey, so ladies, would you sell your farts for $50,000 a month?
I said, yeah.
$50,000 a month. And Molly was like, oh man, I don't know if I would dishonor myself that much. And then Sandra was also thinking about it. She's like, I don't know. I'm very
I guess I'd rather sell it.
I'm very very hesitant. I would be very hesitant to sell it for $50,000 a month. $50,000 a month. After a while of talking,
ridiculous.
Andrea's
I was
like,
it's another
yeah, I would-
stream of income. Are you fucking kidding
no.
me?
Something that you're
After a
already
while,
gonna do.
hold on,
$50,000 a month?
No, hold on. After like 10 minutes of
Andrea's
talking
getting
about this, just 10 minutes of talking about it, Andrea was like, "Yeah, I'd totally do it for $15,000 a month."
Even 50,
She
are you
was thinking we were
serious?
doing it for
Would you
50,000,
not?
and everybody just like started cracking up because we were talking about
$5.
50.
Thank you. Thank you, Kat.
Was this really a thing?
Yes, some chick, and we looked it up. She was selling it for
100,000 a
She was
month.
making 6 figures a month on boxing her farts.
I don't understand.
It's okay.
I don't think it really
I think
stays in
Selling-
there, though.
We are really-
Right. So
we
it's
are
like,
really
who
bored
cares?
We're really bored.
as a society.
It's okay.
Like if we're
Selling farts for fun.
yeah,
People are
not
ordering
even- and that
farts.
people that are buying them.
Yeah.
Like we're really.
I mean, I told him that I would sell pictures of my feet before I would sell my farts.
that's good money. I hear.
I heard
Yeah.
that too.
But I love how Andrea was just like totally sold on it. She's like, "Yeah, I would totally do it for 15,000.
Well, yeah, if
I do it for
If
5,000."
you're if you're being practical about it, right? You're like, well, it doesn't take a whole lot on my end,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
make an extra stream of income.
Yeah.
I can't believe there's a market for
took
it,
it
but
to-
I shouldn't be shocked there's a market for it.
They
Yeah,
were all very picky about it. I'm like, so you're gonna tell me like, yeah, $50,000?
No,
No,
I just thought it was
give
funny
your
that you
farts
thought it
away
was
for free.
15,000, and they were debating about 50.
Yeah.
What do you guys think? What's your opinions on something a little bit more intense? I think I've seen 2 articles now
Mhm.
within the last 3 or 4 years where women have sold their virginity for like millions of dollars,
Oh my gosh.
and they were like,
Are we geishas again?
"Yeah, great reference." Most people don't even know that, but great. Did you watch a geisha? It was a really good movie
Memories
and a
of
good book too.
Geisha.
Yeah. But like that's crazy. Like where does and then I think that maybe part of the reason that's kind of slowed down, but there was a number of people who were like, I got school loans, I got a mortgage, it sets me up for my life. Doing the math on that, and I think potentially that slowed down because OnlyFans kind of bridge that gap where you kind of get the best of both worlds. You don't have to sell it, but you can sell it.
Crazy.
That seems like
Well, I feel like that is prostitution.
Yeah.
So you-
Well, it
unfortunately,
is.
there's kind of this rule on
There's this
selling
law.
sex.
some places, not
but I
everywhere.
gotta
Not
find-
Vegas.
Vegas is.
Not Vegas. Yeah.
Vegas
Good.
is wide open.
You got the
So here,
I forget what it's called. Yes, that one. Out.
this is a kind of funny meme, but then I
Escorts.
also kind of
There's escorts
understand
too.
escorts.
No, there's one of the there was a basketball player. Am I making this up?
Lamar Odom.
Yeah, exactly. Did he die or just OD?
No, OD'd.
Yeah,
But he came back to life.
right. Okay, so I am thinking about the right thing. Thank you.
All right, Catherine, what were you
Sorry,
saying?
what were you
So
got?
I'm going to read this for you guys. I refuse to ever teach my daughters the archaic concept of losing one's virginity, as if some baby-dicked boy who drives a Honda Civic is really taking something special from you. Laugh my ass off, grow up, and overthrow the government.
There's a lot
the-
in that. Who is that?
Is that Well, is that a one site?
No, it's this is a girl that I follow.
Dorks with
through
vaginas?
the Fit for Service.
What's it called?
Nerds with vaginas.
Nerds.
Nerds with Virginos.
Nerds with vaginas. I do love that.
Is
site.
that
That's
what's her
not
name?
from them.
Lana Ray? Lana.
No.
Lana Rhodes.
Yeah.
But it's another girl who is
In
like
that
tied
same-
in with the whole network. Yeah.
Lovely.
So it's like I feel like there's a point to make there, right? Like you're like girls are gonna lose their virginity at some point. So it's kind of like, well,
Maybe
you
they
might as
don't.
well get set up for life and get paid for it, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know. Obviously, I don't.
Yeah, because this whole idea of like the person you lose your virginity to when you're just like stuck with them and they're like the one that got away, I don't think that's real.
No. But we were going to go down a totally different vein. Maybe we'll get ourselves back over there.
You brought this up.
I know. I was interested. This is interesting to me, but like, I could see there's like a couple of ways to look at it. Like, well, what is sacred or what isn't sacred? And certainly when you put it in that frame, it's like that doesn't seem very sacred. But then, like one of my rubs with our current society right now is everything is about money and profit. Everything.
Yeah.
Everything gets filtered through money, and like, I guess it's a process of learning, perhaps, but like there's a lot of people quietly trying to say it's not all about money. Like there are things that are more important than money. But like when you start turning everything into a dollar amount, it's like in exchange for what? Like to me, the things that I value the most are the things that you couldn't buy with money, that you couldn't exchange with money.
Yeah.
So when you start to take things that are intrinsically valuable and you make them, you monetize them, I think that's the beginning of the end. But I could be wrong. What do you guys think about that?
I would agree. Like
Yeah.
that which you don't like hold as sacred or valuable, like it will become about money, you know?
Yeah.
Like, but
Yeah.
if that and your belief around that is going to be the most important thing, then you can't really put a dollar amount to that, you know?
When you look at like dystopian sci-fi movies, that's one of the things that always shows up. Everything is exchanged for money. Like money is and thus like it's like you become
Or
soulless
time.
and no heart. Yeah, time.
That was a good one. Good concept.
But what if like just pretend? What if we created a society in which nobody had to worry about money? How different would society look?
Way different.
What would happen, I wonder?
Yeah, exactly.
I think everybody would be farmers.
What are the consequences?
You think
yeah,
so?
But then,
No.
I don't think everyone's built to be. A
I
farmer.
think everybody would follow their passions. They just do what they want to do every day, as opposed to
I wouldn't
feeling
know.
obligated to pay for bills and things of that nature. Like if you had all your bills paid consistently, I think I'd still be doing what I'm doing now, because I think what I'm doing now makes an impact on society. But I think a lot of people would just, I don't know, like
Follow their passions would preclude they know what they are.
Yeah.
yeah, that's true. People oftentimes don't know what they are. That's why I think like the concept of following your passions and the advice that people give to follow your passion, I think is just BS.
Well,
And for the most part,
the best lies are 60% truth. There's enough truth in there that makes it sound good, that keeps people on that train. I think ultimately when at 21 to let's say 41 is really about figuring out who you are. We call that generally sociology, psychology. That's regarded as like the summer of your life. 21 to 41, and it's really about figuring out who you are. 41 to 61, and there's these give or take a few years on either side of this, is the fall of life, which is like harvest. It's like you've learned enough now that if you set yourself up right, it's mostly just you're reaping what you're sowing now, which can be scary if you didn't sow right 21 to 41. So, and then that's kind of the high season of your life. But if you never figured that out, that's going to be really tricky, I think. And if history, hopefully this changes, but history is not on the side of when everything is good, humans are good. Like that
Right.
doesn't. We seem to be very informed by pain and by fear, and our biggest level ups throughout history have always come that way. Literally, always come that way. Now, I'm hoping we raise consciousness, and consciousness is rising quickly to where we flip that switch, and it goes from being informed by fear by being informed by love. And I think we have an opportunity potentially within our lifetime to flip that switch but it's like the argument. My probably my favorite scene in the entire Matrix series, even though it's not my favorite movie, is in the second Matrix when the architect is talking to Neo.
Yeah.
And he's explaining, we created this perfect world for humans, that there was no pain, there was only pleasure, and everything was perfect, and they didn't have any struggles.
Everybody didn't want to get out.
They rejected it. Like they did not know how to exist in that world, and they kept failing. And it was only when they incorporated pain and imperfection and struggle that humans seemed to thrive and do so much better. And it also created the anomaly, which created Neo, which is genius on so many levels. But like sometimes it's good to reverse engineer and just kind of play through these things. Well, like, what if we went that direction? What would that look like? But if you study history, which sadly seems to be a lost art, history certainly isn't on the side of ease making people better. Mm-hmm. It's usually ease that makes everything worse, because people get lazy and they get too content and they kind of lose their edge, which then provokes the next stage. So what's the tension? Like, how do you do that? But I don't like, again, to me, and I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on this, the things that I value most, I couldn't put a price tag on. Mm. Like, there is no amount of money that makes me go, oh yeah, I would exchange that for this amount of money. And like I feel like our society has gotten to a point where like literally everything has a price tag on it, and that's like gross, in my opinion. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think when you create a utopian world where everything's easy, it's not ideal. I think people value having to struggle to attain something. And like you said, that which is easily attained is lightly esteemed, right? So if you easily attain everything, you're not gonna appreciate the things that you receive. So I think, in general, I think there was like a book. There was like the story in English literature or something, and it was like where this guy, reached utopia, and there was like diamonds, like coming onto the ocean shore consistently, and he just had everything. Everything was perfect. Happiness was perfect, and he just forgot what the name was.
He rejected it.
Yeah, I forgot what the name of the story was, but he
Aladdin.
rejected it as well. And then they go into like a story of why you need to struggle in life, and it's just more fulfilling that way. I like the journey. I think I'm liking the journey. The more and more I'm in like in my life and in business, the more I'm liking it. I think if I had like everything was easy for me, and like I just had everything I wanted, like there's things I'm aiming for, I think I'd just be bored. Like I like the fact that there's like I'm like almost an underdog, and I'm like trying to make it, and then eventually I do make it, and there's another level after I hit a certain level, I think.
Yeah, I could say safely at this point in my life, it isn't any one accomplishment that I am most proud of. It is the journey. It's what I've learned along the way. It's the things that I've learned to overcome within myself. Like, that to me is where all the value is.
Sweeter through difficulty.
Absolutely. Did we want to talk about civilizations? Because I think
I'd love to.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any comments on the exchange of money journey?
It's just there's nothing to compare it to, and everything's good. You don't know that it's good because you don't have bad. If it was always daylight, you would never know the beauty of the sun because there's no moon.
Exactly.
So I think not only is the appreciation for it, but it's also the comparison of having that bad.
To me, that's a really good point, and one of the reasons why history is an incredibly important thing to study. And I'm concerned with how much we loathe history as a generation.
I love history.
I'm like, oh, weird. I'm totally surprised, because history does a really good job of effectively giving you perspective. Like,
right.
Well, shit, these things suck, but 100 years ago, I would have been killing for what I have now.
Right.
The best predictor of future behavior is past behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
so
and
that's the best predictor.
It's not perfect, but it's certainly the best that we have. And it gives you a lot of insight and can help you gain perspective. Now we seem to be in a season, which is not the first time this has happened, as I'm beginning to learn, where we'd rather try to rewrite history. So now we're attacking history and going, oh, that's not even actually true. That was shaped by these people with this agenda.
Right.
Like, okay, well, humans get to participate in whatever they want to do to create whatever world they want. So great, but it's a pretty silly.
Yeah.
That's why I'm buying books from 100, 200 years ago as fast as I can get my hands on them, because I know we're going to do everything in our power to digitalize everything and then edit it how we want. So it's great to have like old books and be like, no, motherfucker, I'm actually reading the book from that era.
Yeah.
It's not what it says.
Yeah.
Even like high school history books.
Revised.
You need,
constantly.
yes. Like people that are trying to erase the slaves and like that's how we learn to be a better country. I don't understand why people are like, well, it's offensive.
Yeah. Yep. I agree. History books in school are among the most revised things, like revised textbooks, and out of all subjects, which is like warning.
Yeah. Yeah. Seriously.
This is a slightly different topic, but within the same realm of what we're talking about. And we obviously just had like the 4th of July pass. And I don't know, there was just like, I was very contemplative that day of how many people in the US are like against guns, are against war, yet we're celebrating a day where we won a war and we want our independence, like, and then how many people actually think about that as opposed to like, hey, I want to grill up some hot dogs and have some beers and shoot off some fireworks.
Yeah, we get too detached. That's the point. If you don't study history, you get too detached from reality of like our story, and thus you lose perspective easily. So it's very, very normal. It's like, and it doesn't within 2 generations that happens. Like you lose sight of where we came from. And that's where we're at now. And I think if history is any repeater, we're probably going to go into some kind of war. I'm not predicting World War III, but we're likely going to go into some kind of war. We're about 90 years out from the last. If you just follow history over the last 500 years, there has been significant change in culture that was predicated upon war about every 80 or 90 years. World War I, World War II ended in 1946. Mm-hmm. So we're right on the cusp.
I think World War III is going to be the most devastating, obviously, of all the wars and combined. I think it's just
perhaps
the amount of devastation just because of the advancement in technology is going to be exponential compared to what we've experienced in the past. Nuclear weapons, other weapons that we're not even aware of, that freaking like Russia has a nuclear weapon that cannot be detected until it explodes.
Oh, good.
It can be detected. Like literally, like we will have no idea it's there. It's in the sky and then falls, and it's crazy.
I'm less worried about that per se, but Einstein is among his many quotes. One of them was he was asked how he thought World War III would be fought, and in context, he was part of the Manhattan Project. We found out later, which is the
missiles,
invention of the atomic bomb, which he was not wanting to be part of, evidently. But
that was his biggest regret.
Yeah, we smuggled him out of Germany, then Russia, and then brought him over here. Like, hey, help us blow up the world. He's like, I thought you guys got me out of fucking Russia, so I didn't have to do this shit.
Yeah.
But one of his questions he was asked is, how do you think World War III will be fought? And his response was, I'm not sure how World War III will be fought, but I'm sure World War IV will be fought with sticks and stones.
Shit.
Which is
nice.
Not a very
wow. Jesus.
Very it's kind of a dark look at things. But his consciousness never seemed to get over 500 or 499, which I think is really interesting. Genius level. But 499, for those who follow Hawkins, transcending levels of consciousness is as high as you can go into the state of wisdom and understanding. 500 is when love starts. And he went right up to that line.
Like, no, stay away.
Which makes sense, considering he was an intellect.
I think Einstein's a very interesting person. Like all of the foundation of physics is based on all of his theories that he, mathematically proved. He's just a really interesting person. And if there's one person that proves why the government needs theoretical physicists, it's Einstein, because
that's fine.
because Japan suffered because of a theoretical physicist that figured out quantum physics that developed the hydrogen bomb. So Nagasaki and Hiroshima is, what happened because of Einstein. So that's why people wonder, like, oh, why are certain people getting scholarships? It's because there's certain people that can do theoretical physicists, and there's a very select few people that are smart enough that can do theoretical physicists. And so we need to give them all the scholarships we can give them, because
if you want to turn your world upside down, go study theoretical physics. It's like that'll like.
But here's the thing: physics is one of those things where like IQ is extremely important in physics. Like there's people. There were a few people like, so when I took physics, it was I took kinematics, and I took it was just the first level of physics, and then it was electromagnetism afterwards. And there were people in physics, like straight A students in physics. I was in the class with them, and they did not understand anything. No matter how hard they studied, no matter what they did, didn't matter. They would study 2 days straight, and they were like, I still don't get it. I don't get it. Okay, so then there's the next level of like, okay, I understand physics, I get it, I can work hard to understand physics. Then there's the next level of like, I just get it right away, and then there's theoretical physics. So there was this one guy that was explaining this, and he was like, he was like a math scholar, and his brother was a math scholar as well, and he said he's like way smarter than his brother. But what he was saying was, so Caltech is like this university, and you have to have like the average SAT score in Caltech is like 1570 or something like that. Like you're on you're the lowest 25 percentile if you're at 1570 on your SAT, meaning you're like genius level. And he was saying that like there's people like in Caltech. He was a theoretical physicist. He said people in Caltech that could not understand theoretical physics. They understood physics, but they didn't understand theoretical physics, and they couldn't prove out certain equations. And Jeff Bezos actually mentioned this. He was like, you have to be like top level, like the top 50 people in the world to even get to the point where you're effectuating any type of change in physics. And so it's like there's just certain people that can do it, and we need to give them all the resources we can possibly give them.
Well, part of the reason, I'd love to hear what you guys think on some of these topics here, but part of the reason that happens is because you create a worldview through your frame of what you think physics is that crystallizes. And once it crystallizes, you're stuck. And like in most scientific fields, it's accepted that if you don't come up with a new theory by the time you're 35, you're not likely going to, because you become totally indoctrinated by whatever your current paradigm is.
Right.
It crystallizes. A very strong indicator of intelligence is being able to keep your mind from crystallizing, where it stops, like,
yeah,
it doesn't get rigid.
Right.
And a lot of people don't know how to do that, which is why it takes entire generations for a new fucking way of looking at the world to come out, because a whole generation will get crystallized around seeing the world a particular way, and then they literally don't know how to not.
Right. And that's scary, because we're one technology away from being not the most powerful country in the world. One technology away. That technology probably is related to gravity in some way, because it's the only force we haven't really mastered. So we have 4 forces in nature. There's
not
strong
only mastered,
force.
There's a reason why we still
Harnessed.
call it a theory.
Yeah, harnessed.
Like,
we haven't harnessed
that's
gravity.
Wild. It's gravitational theory. The theory of gravity, meaning we still don't quite understand what the hell.
Why we always fall down and shit.
Which is why it's still called the gravitational theory.
Well, yeah. So there's 4 forces in nature. The first is weak. The second is strong. The third is electromagnetic, and the fourth is gravity. We've harnessed all 3 of the other forces, and once we harness gravity, then it's like game over. Whoever harnesses gravity in a weapon, it's like game over for the rest of the world.
Interesting.
Maybe they just wanted to keep us here.
To keep us here.
They're like, all right, humans, you can only do so much, so we're going to put a leash on you. Stay on Earth.
And that's called gravity.
And then when you fuck it up, we're going to come in and
Pull you
wash
right
it
out
off,
there.
blow it up, and you can start over again.
Watch Eternals.
Yes.
Like we know how to we know. Yeah, we don't know how to harness gravity. We know that how it works, I guess, but we don't know the intricacies of why it works. And
there's some interesting history and some theoretical aspects and other sources that come into play here. But there seems to be
Excuse me.
the limited information as far as physical records that Atlantis did know how to manipulate gravity. The many people believe that a lot of the ancient architecture was only possible because they knew how to use gravity, meaning they were floating blocks into place and moving massive stones into place. Because
So maybe the pyramids
the
created
pyramids.
gravity.
No. Well, to be fair, this could be an aspect of magnetism too. But like, we talked about this before, and I heard you guys bring it up on another podcast that we weren't on. But like, we still don't know how they put those bloody blocks in place, just in the pyramid, right?
Nobody wants to talk about that right now.
I mean, we're not going to go down that line, but like you mentioned it, and you're exactly right. Like, our biggest cranes couldn't do that, so we don't know how they did it.
Yeah.
Based on
Our
what
biggest
we
cranes
know.
can only lift 10-ton stones, and there's multiple 200-ton stones.
Right. And so one
Yeah.
of the operational theories is that they were literally, I'm saying this in layman's language, they were essentially floating them into place. Like,
Yeah,
just
no
moving
evidence
them
of
along.
that, but it's possible.
Well, there is some evidence of that, in that all of the stones that are used, Easter Island, you've got these big, random, massive
Circles.
stones in
Stone
somewhere in the middle
circles.
of Mexico. I think it's Mexico, somewhere in Latin America.
Hmm.
Like, there's all these places. One thing they all have in common: all the stones used have electrical charge, all of them. Which that gives you like a
No, and there's insulation on the external part of it as well. So there's it acts like a real mechanism for electricity to transfer through it. So there's there's a conductive element
Well, you're talking about the
internal.
pyramids. I know the
Most
pyramids, that's the case.
most stones that you're talking about, there's I'm talking specifically about the pyramids. I don't know about the other stones. I'm not educated on that, but there's a conductive element
For sure.
that is that induces electricity on the internal of the limestone dolomite, I believe. And then there's the external part that's an insulator. So
And there's theories that
electricity can't be induced.
we are conducting electricity potentially through the Earth's magnetic field, but I believe it's the Great Pyramid that was supposed to be a tomb for, what's his name, Khufu? But
Khufu? Yeah.
Khufu, but we haven't discovered a tomb. We haven't discovered a...
There's no evidence for it being a tomb.
Right. So it's like, well, what the
Yeah.
fuck? Anyway, the pyramids are one of my why did we stop? Maybe we didn't stop. I'm just getting in the game. But
I mean, I could talk about this for 10 podcasts, but I think it's going to annoy everyone.
this is stuff that it's that's just...
Well, you know that in ancient Rome, there were stones or concrete that we can't replicate.
I know.
There,
It was built before Rome. Rome built I'm killing it. The Acropolis?
The
One of
Colosseum?
the... No.
isn't that Athens? Acropolis?
It
It's
was
Athens.
one of the... It was built on
Yeah.
top of an existing structure that we still don't know how that structure was built. And it was tore down to its roots, and then they just built on top of it. But we're like...
No, but
What in the fuck?
there's concrete that ancient Rome, I think, developed that strengthens in water, and we don't know how to replicate that.
It's fascinating.
So,
Technologies
which
that get lost.
shows you that we literally forget how to do things. If we're not consistently trained and educated on certain aspects of our technology, we literally forget how to do it. We literally forgot how to fly to the moon. We had to relearn it. That's what Elon Musk talks about. Is we literally, so technology doesn't advance by itself. Somebody has to actually have ambition to change it.
To the stones very quick, and then we can pass.
Okay.
I don't know if you guys remember. It's in one of... I think it's the first episode of Star Wars.
Don't
it's-
remember.
It's
Nope.
maybe the second one, where they're trying to... I think it's the second one. Fuck. Maybe it's the third one. It's one of them. But he's going to look for a missing planet that he can't find.
Right.
And the planet is missing. He goes, it should be right there, but it's not. Right? And Yoda is teaching these young students, these young Jedi, he's instructing them at the point when Obi-Wan comes up to talk to him about this. And Yoda goes to his students. He goes, well, what is the obvious answer? So, and they answer it for him, and it is the obvious answer. Somebody removed it.
Right.
It's there. It's just somebody deleted it from the file. And that's exactly right. And he was able to find the planet because what was staring them in the face was so obvious for trying to explain. Well, it's like, that's why I buy into some of these theories of like, okay, how did we move these fucking stones? Like, we don't know how we wouldn't be able to do this. I'm like, well, what is the obvious answer? They were using a technology we don't have. Right? Instead of trying to explain it through fucking levers and logs, I'm like, get the fuck out of here. 16,000 slaves per fucking stone.
Yeah.
It's like perfectly aligned at 485 feet or whatever the shit is. Oh, yeah, it's just math, dude. I'm like, bro, that's not math. That's something else.
Or
Anyway.
that we do have and we just don't know how to use or forgot how to use.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. It's like, I think we're going to see some of these technologies come back onto the earth, and it's going to freak people out because they're not going to know what to do with what they're seeing. Where we do learn how to move things in ways that, like, we took a more physical approach to technology this last time around, which was probably better for humanity because it appears anyway that some other civilizations pre 10,000 years ago wiped themselves out because they were playing with technologies on a whole other level that they got crazy.
Well,
with.
do you know about this like Bob Lazar stuff? No.
I don't know who that is. I don't think.
Anybody know who Bob Lazar is?
No.
Nobody knows who Bob Lazar is. Wow. Okay.
Is he a chef?
No. No. It maybe sounds like
Wham.
it, but so Bob Lazar was a guy that came out, he went public with the work he was doing in the government.
Did he disappear afterwards?
No, he's still alive and still does interviews. Joe Rogan did an interview with him, but
Oh, is that what you
Apparently-
sent in the group message?
no.
No.
So Bob Lazar, he worked for S4 in Area 51, and he was literally
And he hasn't disappeared?
A lot of
but so
alphanumeric designations.
yeah, so they were working on this technology. Apparently, it was alien technology that harnessed gravity. And he said they knew how to work it, they knew how to like operate it, but they didn't know how it worked. And he was sent there because he was like this genius guy to figure out how it worked. And he's like, we have no clue. And I don't know if they're still working on this to this day, but he's a very credible source. He worked for the government, and a lot of things that he said in the past that people, called him on, they were like, "This sounds like bullshit." It actually came true. Like he said, there was an element that we didn't have in the periodic table.
There's many.
The
We
element
just discovered 3 more.
element that we had in the periodic table that was used to harness that technology, and they found out like 20 years later that the element actually existed and the government was working on it. And then they had like particular programs that he talked about, and he's saying that there was this technology that they found, and it was like a spacecraft, and it was operated through by gravity, and it's just like really, really interesting because people have tried to disprove what he said, and a lot of things like came true.
Well, think about this to interrupt your thought process. This is how I keep myself sane with this shit, because undoubtedly when you start getting into the theoretical and you start getting out into the woo-woo land, you invite every crazy half-assed conspiracy theorist, you invite everyone who's looking for attention and trying to draw attention to them. Like you get out there and shit starts to get crazy and can get out of control, right? So it's easy to get lost in all of the silliness of it. And then when you do that, very often you're going to miss some very obvious truths or potentials to change society because you reject everything because you don't have a system for not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. But here's how one thing I do to keep myself sane. If I dropped into the 1500s right now with my cell phone,
Right.
and I said, yeah, I just push a button and I can talk to people all over the world. They're like, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
There's no way. They have literally no way to understand that. And they're like, well, prove it. Well, I'm like, well, I'm in the 1500s and there's no cell towers right now, so it doesn't actually work. They're like, yeah, I thought so. Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
And then then explain the technology. Well, we have towers set up and in little invisible communication packets that you can't see, but trust me, they're there. They do communicate with one another. People, they wouldn't get it, and they would think you're fucking crazy.
Yeah, but not only that, you have to think about like, let's say we sent a nuclear weapon to the Victorian era.
Well, you don't have to get that fucking crazy.
But
Stick
no,
with the cell phone
but saying
analogy.
say you sent a nuclear.
toaster.
Hold on. No, let me
micro-
let me explain. Let me explain this a little bit.
An air fryer.
So if you sent a nuclear reactor, right, to the Victorian era, they would go, this is strange, right? they would try to take it apart.
Blow themselves up.
The radioactive materials would kill them, everybody in the room. So Bob Lazar was talking about how this technology that they found in the government, like they were extremely careful because they didn't know if it would like kill them or where the case may be.
You don't know what you don't know. But it's easy to not get, for me, it's easy to not get freaked out by technologies that we don't understand and reject them as wholesalely not existing simply because I can't get my mind around it, by simply jumping back in history and trying to explain things that we take for granted every day of our lives, that they would be like, this doesn't exist. There's no way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, I think it's only a matter of time before this stuff starts to come around. And I should say good. There is some archaeological evidence to suggest we've been here before. Like we've gotten to a point where our technology and our science has gotten to a point where we had a potential to either elevate, ascend, or destroy ourselves. And in history, it seems like we've taken the lesser path.
Eric Weinstein doesn't think we'll survive the next 50 years. That's what he said.
Yeah, there's always been that guy.
And he's great. He's a theoretical physicist. But
See you in the next one, guys.
yeah, I think if we can somehow get to the speed of light, that's going to change a lot, because it freezes time. Essentially, technically, when you get to the speed of light, and this is proven already with the Hadron Collider in what is it, France? Is it France?
Yeah, in Europe, CERN.
It's the Hadron Collider. So there's like certain like particles that so first law of thermodynamics says that everything decays, right? So there's this particle, it's called the muon, I think, muon or the neutron, but it decays in like I think 30 seconds, and you can literally put it in the Hadron Collider at the speed of light, because that's what the Hadron Collider does. And it won't decay. It will literally stay like it'll stay alive or not decay for way longer. So you could put it in the Hadron Collider. The decay time horizon is probably like 15 seconds or something. You can put it in Hadron Collider for like 3 hours and it will still be there, which is crazy. Which shows you can actually travel in the future. You can slow down time.
What's most interesting to me about this stuff is we're obsessed with the first 3 dimensions. And I just can't wait until we get the fuck over.
We have 4 dimensions currently.
Correct.
We're still very much obsessed with the physical world. And it's like when you get to the next level of the game, you realize it's a sandbox.
That's why I love Interstellar. Have you guys watched Interstellar?
Is that the space one with?
Yeah, there's a little there's exaggeration.
Okay.
There's exaggeration in it, obviously. But it like
On Netflix.
it explains the physics. It seems like science fiction, but it's
still
real.
trapped in physics as we know it in the first 3 dimensions. I'm more in like the Neo camp when Neo's talking to Morpheus, and Neo goes, "What do you mean? You tell me I'm gonna be able to dodge bullets? That's physics." And he goes, "No, Neo. When you get this, you won't have to."
Right.
In other words, the physics that you think is so important is going to go fuck away. And that's, I think, why so many people get stuck, is because they don't know how to see out of physics as we see it, which is we're so obsessed with the material universe that as soon as you get out of the material universe, I mean, it's beautiful that we're doing everything in our power to understand every little piece of it. Once you get out of the physical universe, it's like time is an illusion. So it's funny to me that we're so obsessed with trying to figure out how to make time not an illusion. Maybe that's the path for like, hey, we actually figured out through physics that time doesn't actually exist. Oh, well, I'm glad you figured that out. We're seeing this where there are deep spiritual truths that have been taught for thousands, if not tens of thousands of years, that now science is going, oh yeah, that's true. Glad it worked out for you. You got there on your own. It's like, okay.
That's funny. But yeah, I think it's just really interesting if you watch Interstellar. I don't know if you guys know the story, but
doesn't he shake his hand or high five him or
Himself.
Yeah.
Is that what you guys said last time?
So I guess there's like the weather. We don't have control of the weather in Interstellar,
Okay.
and all of the food supply is depleting at an exponential rate, and so we actually need to go to another planet to survive. And so
Centauri,
yeah,
I think.
and so there was this one planet they went to. It's called Miller's Planet, I believe. Miller's Planet, and this Miller's Planet was like close to a black hole. And so because, black holes, gravity is much stronger close to black holes on Miller's planet, when you change so theory of relativity with Einstein is really a gravitational theory. It's not really like space and time theory. It's like more of a gravitational theory. And if you're like on Miller's planet, closest black hole where gravity is way stronger on Miller's planet, when they went on Miller's planet, every hour was 7 years on Earth.
I was gonna say
Wow.
like a decade.
Every hour was 7 years on Earth. So you were on this planet for 1 hour, 7 years on Earth passed. So they went on this planet, and they were like, so other people traveled to this place, and they go out, and it's all water. There's like nothing there, and this girl tries to get this data that this other scientist, because they need this data to figure out if like humans can survive on the planet, right? So she's like, we need to get this data, but there's like this huge tsunami of like, it was like 100 feet high that was coming towards them. And she's like, no, we got to get this data. So like there was this weird logistical issue where they had to like go save her, and they had to get all the other people and like 5 hours passed or something like that.
Oh my gosh.
And so by the time they got onto this spacecraft, there was another guy that was like in space. He was like 23 years has passed. And so this guy, Matthew McConaughey, is like watching all of the video of his family sending him like as they age. And this is actually theoretically true. This can happen the weird thing about him being on Miller's planet is that close to a black hole, they would literally be squashed if the gravity was that strong. If gravity was that strong, they wouldn't be able to survive on the planet. But I'm thinking that eventually when we get to a planet like that, we'll have technology that will help us survive. But that theoretically is true. That can happen if gravity is strong enough in a specific planet. So I thought it was so crazy how like
a good movie.
Literally his son like had a baby, was introducing the baby after 23 years.
It would be a total mind fuck for the person that felt like they were gone for 15 minutes.
Right.
Is this a really intense shroom trip? Happened. Like,
Yeah.
wow.
And then so when he got back to Earth, like after they finished like
Oh,
their
don't tell me the end.
Oh, okay. I won't. Just watch
It just
Interstellar.
makes me wonder,
But
like,
it's-
would you age at the same rate
No.
relative to the time that you are processing in? You know?
No, they don't. But to me, this is the whole point. It's still playing in a particular sandbox, a certain physics that we understand. Once you release that frame, now you're free to play in any sandbox.
How do you do that?
Recognize it's a sandbox to start, which is scientists are going to have a real hard time with that because their entire world.
Dogma. They're very dogmatic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dogmatic, and their whole world makes sense based on their frame, which is why there's a limit to what they can understand. As is anyone, right? Like the world is informed by how we see it. So we create frames and we get rigid about our frames, and that's all we can see, which is why in science it's largely accepted. You're not going to come up with any new theories if you don't do it by the time you're 35, because for most people their brains crystallize. Einstein obviously being one of the exceptions.
He was more successful later in life.
He
He was like a clerk by 36.
Yeah, he was like ramped up, which is, he's unique, but he was also a genius.
But if you looked at his life from like 1 to 36,
slow.
you would think this guy is not going to think of a theoretical physics that's going to change the world. You would not think. You would think he's not successful. He's a clerk, probably making minimum wage, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then at 36, he thinks of this theory of relativity, and the scientists.
And then
So it took him like I think a few years for the scientists to even give him a chance to like hear him out on his theories, because they were like, "What are you going to tell us? You're a clerk. We're like PhD scientists at like Harvard. You know, like what are you going to tell us?" That like literally for 2 years they were doing that to him, and then after a while, he's so good he couldn't be ignored. They looked at his theories. They got one person look at his theories, mathematical equations, like this makes sense.
I love it. I love this shit. I think it's fun. We're talking about Einstein though.
I don't know if the girls
my favorite
I'm excited for you.
entanglement. But like entanglement theory is that's a super fascinating one to me, right? He called it spooky at a distance, which is how two different objects can interact with each other
I'm okay.
at massive distance, and we don't have any way to understand how that's happening. We still don't get it.
For example,
And
one of the more enjoyable kind of stories is they took scientists took white blood cells or cells off it wasn't white blood cells, but they took cells off a U.S. naval survivor of Pearl Harbor. They took cells off his tongue, scraped them into a petri dish, and so they were cultivating in a petri dish. And they took the petri dish, I think it was 100 miles away, but it was a significant distance away from him. And then they tied equipment that would be most like a lie detector test to the petri dish and to him, and they started having him watch Pearl Harbor like
footage.
Mm-hmm. And at the exact same time, like
they would react.
They would respond and react the exact same way. And we currently don't understand why that is. It wasn't like they were communicating. There was no space. There was no gap. It wasn't like this is communicating with that and then that responds. They were communicating at the same time, which ties into that is entanglement theory expressed. But Einstein called it spooky at a distance because he was like, I don't really know where this goes. I don't understand how this happens.
what was the physicist Michio Koku or something? Yeah. Anyways, he was talking. That's a video I sent you guys. But he was talking about entanglement, and he was also talking about civilizations and the different types, 3 types. Are you familiar with this?
Yeah, you got basic civilization or level 1 civilization, which we may or may not, where we can basically harness the Earth's resources, and then I think second one is universe, and the last one is galactic.
No. So
something like that, where you get
interstellar. No, is it stellar? Fuck. Okay, the second is like stars. You can harness stars, right? And then third was like galactic, whereas universal, where you can harness and control every aspect of the physical realm, and meaning you could travel through space without challenge. You could do it in seconds. You could harness black holes. You can travel through black holes, no problem. Travel through wormholes, whatever the case may be. And he said So type 1 would mean like we would literally have complete control over every aspect of the physical world. Right, meaning we'd harness gravity, we'd be able to harness biotechnology, so we'd not have any diseases, we wouldn't have any viruses or cancer or whatever the case may be. That would be completely eliminated from the earth. We could control the weather, we can control volcanoes, we can control earthquakes, tsunamis, things like that, and we'd be able to harness control completely over those things. Where what he was saying was where mathematically you can actually make equations that kind of show the exponentiality of technology, and he's saying we're about 100 years away from that, 100 years away from completely harnessing everything on Earth, the forces on Earth. But he said in that 100 years, that's like the most deadly, because we're trying to figure that out. We're not harnessing it, but we're creating new technologies that could literally destroy the world.
Yep.
So
that was what I was referencing when there's archaeological evidence that we go through this cycle between 10 to 100,000 years. Like,
right.
This isn't our first rodeo with this. Usually you get ancient Lemuria, you get Atlantis, and we know archaeologically there are other societies who have been magically wiped out, and we don't have a good explanation for what the hell happened.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Like tectonic plates shifted, they all went underwater, new continents arose, and the whole thing started over again. And it looked like, they were playing with technology they either didn't totally understand or got bored and started fucking around with it. But
yeah.